Ooh. Yeah. Hello, YouTubers! My name's Willie. Welcome to my channel. Today I have reaction video number 68, and this is the second part of a list from Arch Warhammer called The War for Armageddon. So, I've watched the first one. You can find it on my channel. And in the future, I plan to react to all the parts of that list. So, look forward to videos 96, 101, 102, 107, 111, 114, 115. Why do I have it all staggered? So I can react to stuff in between. Some of these are rather long. Anyways, this video was requested, or this reaction was requested by Samuel. So let's check it out. Okay. Leaders. Play.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome to this not quite Warhammer 40k lore video. Today's will be a short one because I am basically just outlining the main players in the War for Armageddon. Don't worry, next week's video will be making up for it when we will be looking at the first Orc invasion in great detail. Also, the characters I will be talking about today will be getting their own full lore videos after the War for Armageddon series is complete, since their backstories obviously contains a fair bit of spoilers as to the war itself, and it would be kinda, putting the cart before the horse to make their videos first. But at the same time, I do want you to have a little bit of knowledge about the main movers and the shakers. Let us start with the Great Orc himself, Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka. This, the greatest orc to have ever lived, except for,
what a name and a look.
Anyways, never mind that, is a rather fanciful character. He has led several attacks both upon the Imperium and many other races, including the Eldar and the Tyranids and various other creatures, and he has been quite successful, particularly when you measure his success against the usual orc metrics, which is not particularly great, to be entirely honest with you. But Magazgul Magoruk Thraka is not your average orc. He is a genius. And he might very well be a psychic genius. But before we get to that, let us talk a little bit about his origins. Because it is a rather interesting little story. You see, the young Thraka was but a normal boy. That was all. He was living his life in the warband of a Goth warlord, who one day ordered him to climb a mountain and assault an Adeptus Astartes position, which, everything considered, ended rather badly for young Thraka, or perhaps it actually ended very well. You be the judge. The outpost was a mere listening post and was not actually defended by Adeptus Astartes themselves, but the Astartes are famously niggardly when it comes to their toys, and they didn't want to share any with the orcs, and so they had plopped down various automated defenses around the installation. It was one of these automated defenses that decided to put a bullet through Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka's brain pan, scattering what meager portions of brain the orc had once possessed all over the sharp, jagged rocks. But this, surprisingly enough, was not the end for young Thraka, who got back up again, some bloody how. A pair of friendly orcs guided him back down the mountain and handed him over to Mad Doc Gitsnake for the price of 3 teeth and a new chopper. What, you weren't expecting good Samaritans from the orcs, were you? The Mad Doc, living up to his name, decided to chop off what remained of Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka. that's a mouthful. Let's just call him Thraka for now. Decided to cut off what remained of Thraka's top head and rummage around inside for a little bit, pulling some pieces out, adding some random pieces in again, muscling it around, and then giving it a good stir for good measure, before taking a nice solid piece of adamantium plating, placing it over the offending hole, and then hitting it repeatedly with a hammer until it stopped leaking. Not the most subtle of surgeries, I think you will agree, but orcs are
Sounds kind of Borderlands.
Not only did Thraka survive the procedure, which is impressive enough in and of itself, but he got better from it. It would appear that Gazgul had some sort of latent psychic talent, or perhaps it was merely his psychic powers as an orc, as all orcs do have a latent psychic power that is usually smoldering just below the surface. The orcs are, in almost all cases, not able to actually utilize this power for anything particularly useful. But in the case of Gazgul and his brand new headpiece, he managed to tap into this power somehow and started receiving visions from Gork and Mork. And the twin deities wanted him to conquer the galaxy. Now, you may of course question the judgment of the twin deities for deciding that a brain-damaged orc would be the best candidate for this rather monstrous task, but it turned out to be pretty damn okay. Thraka quickly rose to prominence on his home planet, taking over the various other tribes, and eventually the vagaries spat a space hulk into the system, which Thraka wasted no time in appropriating for its own means. The space hulk had a minor infestation of a couple billion demons, but hey, that is all just fun and games for the Orcsies, and eventually they managed to take over the space hulk. They hadn't really figured out how to steer it or anything, but luckily Gork and Mork was on the spot once again, pulling the space hulk back into the warp and hurling it back out of the Immaterium on a direct collision course with the planet Armageddon. Unfortunately for the up-and-coming warlord, the planet of Armageddon was home to an even bigger badass than him, namely God himself. No, wait. Commissar Sebastian Yarek. At this point, he might as well be a goddamn deity, considering everything that crazy little motherfucker has actually survived. But more on that in his own video. Sebastian Yarek is, as his title suggests, an Imperial Guard Commissar. But just as Thraka, his beginnings are quite humble. Born on the planet of Taos 3, he was orphaned at the age of 7, and then raised by his maternal grandfather in a small community near Caedon Hive. At this point in time, Sebastian Yarek was not even called Sebastian Yarek. He was born Sebastian Varden, and his grandfather happened to be an Imperial Guard veteran who taught him all manners of funny things, like laying traps and shooting people in the head with las weapons. And this proved to be a remarkably useful lesson, because the planet was later invaded by orcs. You can start seeing a little bit of a red string of fate going on here. The young Sebastian spent several months fighting the orcs, killing Gretchens, placing traps, and generally making as much of a nuisance of himself as humanly possible, until an Imperial Guard relief force arrived at the planet round about 3 months later, and rescued the planet from the orc invader. One of the first Imperial Guard regiments deployed to send out a patrol picked up the lone 10-year-old boy, who there and then took the name of his grandfather to memorize his loss, and his grandfather's name was, you guessed it, Yarek. After these gruesome events, Sebastian Yarek was, like all orphans of the Imperial Guard, enrolled into the Schola Progenium to be trained and indoctrinated as an Imperial Commissar. Yarek graduated with honors and began his career fighting another orc Varg on the world of Varun. During this campaign, he also learned their crude language and developed a fascination for the brutish greenskins, becoming one of the Imperium's foremost experts on the orcs. The Commissar had a long and
Nice.
illustrious career, serving with many regiments from Necromunda, Luther, McIntyre, and even Armageddon. His final assignment before retirement was to run the recruitment program for the rebuilding of the 4th Armageddon Imperial Guard Regiment, which had been severely decimated. Sebastian Jarek was to be honoured with retirement, something that very, very few within the Imperial Guard ever truly deserve, and even fewer actually receive. Retirement
Wow.
did not sit particularly well with the
Sounds
aging
pretty
Commissar,
impressive.
however. After retraining the reinforcement for the 4th Armageddon Imperial Guard Regiment, he was, in all due technicality, retired. However, he did not feel like stepping out of the limelight just yet. He kept himself involved both in local Imperial politics and within the Armageddon Steel Legion, much to the dismay of the local planetary governor, one Hermann von Straub, who called Jarek the greatest waste of flesh and bone in the last 500 years, and eventually banished him to Armageddon Secundus and Hades Hive. This was to turn out to be a rather fortuitous event, because Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka was just about to ram an entire space Hulk straight into Armageddon Prime. As you can imagine, this rather sudden entrance resulted in a bit of a brawl, with the two factions, the Orcs and the Imperium, fighting a rather savage war, the Imperium being hamstrung at every turn by the incompetence of Hermann von Straub, who, many suggests, were actively working for the Orcs, which seems like a ridiculous suggestion, humans working with Orcs, cats and dogs living together, etc., but it is not entirely unprecedented. Regardless, the Imperium was driven to the absolute brink, the edge of defeat, when finally salvation arrived in the form of the mighty Adeptus Astartes, the Emperor's Angels of Death, led by the Blood Angels chapter master himself, Lord Commander Dante. And wouldn't you know it, the chapter master of the Blood Angels also had a rather unassuming origin story. He was born on Baal's second moon, and his growth was stunted from birth by malnutrition and radiation. When he first took part in the clan's trials of the Place of Challenge, he showed absolutely no special promise whatsoever, but he did survive, and that in and of itself is quite the achievement. Let us just say that the Blood Angels' initiation rituals are not the gentlest of affairs. What did garner him a fair bit of attention, however, was his rather interesting reaction to the ritualistic drinking of the gene seed synthesized blood of Sanguinius. Dante went into a year-long coma of sorts, where he did nothing but shout out the names of the Primarchs and of long-lost and banished demons and other nastinesses. He was essentially a bit of a sleeping beauty, except a very, very loud and prophetic sleeping beauty. And it is obvious that the chapter must have figured that there was something special about him, because usually anyone found uttering the words that Dante was screaming in his sleep would be lucky to get a bolt round boring through the backs of their skulls, and in the worst case scenario they'd simply be handed over to the Inquisition, or someone else equally inquisitive, and used as a torture puppet for the next 16 years in a deep dark dungeon. Though, granted, Dante's ascension to the role of chapter master was perhaps a little bit less glorious than the Blood Angels might have originally wished for. He was made chapter master by simple virtue of being the only captain left alive after the Callius insurrection. The battle for the planet below was fierce indeed, as the Blood Angels got dragged into a lengthy conflict. By all rights, the Blood Angels must have put paid to millions of heretical lives, but they were slowly but surely being ground down. They were eventually reinforced by a large-scale deployment of Imperial Guard regiments and several other Space Marine chapters. The Blood Angels, having lost considerable numbers of their troops and several of their commanders, withdrew to high orbit to recuperate. Unfortunately, respite was not on the menu for the Chosen of Sanguinius, as a Chaos Armada ripped its way out of the warp and engaged the Imperial Navy elements. During the fighting, the Blood Angels were
Wow.
reduced to a mere 10% of their original chapter strength. All of their commanders were slain, and the only surviving members of their top command structure were a few sanguinary priests and chaplains, which came together and elected Dante as the next chapter master. An elevation due at least partially to the simple fact that he was the only surviving captain. Fortunately for the Blood Angels, Commander
Nice.
Dante was to prove himself more than capable of the task, and would indeed arise to become one of the most legendary commanders of the Blood Angels since Sanguinius himself. And on the planet of Armageddon, he won perhaps his most famous of victories, taking an Imperial force that was days away from utter defeat and routing the rampaging Orc warlord once and for all. Dante's opening gambit for the war for Armageddon was to drop his Blood Angels directly into the largest concentration of orcs he could find, hoping to decapitate the orc horde by
Wow.
killing its war boss, and for a while it was even rumored that Dante had succeeded in this gambit, but, as we all know, it turned out that Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka was considerably harder to kill than that. But Dante and his Blood Angels were not the only Astartes to rush to the beleaguered system's defense. Another character that we do need to mention, although he did not garner quite the accolades that Dante did, is the chapter master of the Salamanders, Tushan. At this
Alright,
point in time, Tutu
salamanders.
was very, very new to the job. He had only held the position of chapter master for 3 standard years, meaning that compared to Dante, who'd been holding his seat for a couple hundreds, he was the merest babe. But whereas many other chapters would instantly have some friction going on from having multiple chapter masters in the same system, the Salamanders are considerably more pragmatic when it comes to their leadership, and Tushan immediately allowed himself to be put under command of the far more experienced Dante. While the Blood Angels struck at the Orcs
Nice.
directly and the Ultramarines took up defensive position in the hive cities, the Salamanders took care of the civilian population. The Salamanders are quite unique as far as Space Marine chapters go, as they actually give a shit about the Imperial civilian. They spent their time guarding supply convoys
Nice.
and also refugee columns, protecting them from Orc raiders, and without the Salamanders, the death
Okay.
toll on
Okay.
Armageddon would have been much, much higher. Tushan was also responsible for rallying much of the planet's PDF troops, which had been overlooked by the Blood Angels, the Ultramarines, the Steel Legion, and basically everyone else as practically useless. However, under the command of the Salamanders, the Planetary Defense Force made themselves known as a force worth reckoning with. The first company of the Salamanders also performed one of the war's most heroic actions, holding a bridge over the river Styges against a 1,000-strong Orc speed freak column. At the conclusion of the campaign, Dante sought out the young chapter master personally and brought him before his
Wow.
Blood Angels to be praised before his battle brothers. This was a supreme gesture of respect and praise. And Tushan had
Wow.
most certainly earned it. Having only held his position for 3 years, he went up against Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka and his speed freaks and held his own throughout the conflict, winning both the respect of the Blood Angels and his first company in the bargain. Right then, now that you know a little bit about
Nice.
the main actors, next week we will move on to the actual war itself, starting of course with the first war for Armageddon. What's that? The Orcs did not do the first war for Armageddon, you say? Demons, you say? I do believe you are spouting heresy, my boy. There was absolutely no demon invasion of Armageddon, and there was most definitively no mass relocation of the planet's population. Don't be silly, Timmy. Until next time, I have been Arch. Thank you very much for watching,
What?
and I hope to see you all again soon.
What was that? Well, you too, Arch. Well, intriguing. None, you say. Nice. Very nice. The way he lays everything out is quite entertaining, which is good because, well, it's mostly talking. And some people just get tired of lore. So, thank you for that, Arch. It was fantastic. Again, that was the leaders part of the War for Armageddon series by Arch Warhammer. There is a link to this list in the description below. So go check it out. Go support Arch Warhammer, please. Magnificent lore keeper. Again, this is a series I'm going to be continuing. So look forward to the other episodes. And this has been requested by Samuel. So thank you, Samuel, for requesting this. And well, that's pretty much all I've got to say for it. So Willie, out.
If you like the video, stay tuned for more content. And as always, feel free to comment. Have a good one.